Okay, this is video number 2, and how do we self-sabotage ourselves with the new age, new spiritual paradigm, pop psychology paradigm. So how do we self-sabotage ourselves? This is number 2, which is you have to be happy all the time in order to prove that you're spiritually evolved. Well, okay, let's make sure I have this on here correctly. Here we go. So making sure I'm looking in the camera and looking at you and not looking at the button. So what is this all about? Can you actually be spiritually evolved and be in a bad mood? Well, I would invite anyone to who believes that you have to be happy all the time to watch the Yogananda movie Awake. Now, Yogananda, I believe, was one of the most enlightened human beings to walk this earth. And, there are many examples like him as well. Very many. And he was not happy all the time. He actually knew how to embrace those emotions as they came in, feel them, and release them, and still maintain his connection to God. Now, this is a true definition of really being connected and knowing how to be human. It is complete mastery. So we have this perception, this thing that's come about, with pop psychology and pop new age psychology, is you have to be happy and joyous in order to attract the things you want. Well, it's really quite fascinating. Yes, doors do open up when you are feeling happy and open and your energy is expanded. It completely works. There are some amazing meditations out there to shift your space, to shift your mind space from, a closed off, maybe unhappy space to like an open space. And you do one of those, you walk out in the world and wow, it's extraordinary what happens. But also, I really want to invite you to try something if you haven't, but also if you are familiar with 12-step programs, this is another place. There's a whole different way of doing things. And also some, folks who belong to specific types of religions also know these things to be true as well. It's so fascinating, the different realities and paradigms we could put ourselves in. But what happens is there's also, when you're in a really bad space, you surrender. You say, okay, God, you do it, because I can't. You could be miserable and go, God, you do it, I can't. And then what happens? Magic. It is unbelievable. I have seen and witnessed the most extraordinary, quote, manifestations, the most extraordinary burning bush experiences, the most extraordinary turn your life and change it on a dime experiences when people surrender. I've seen it in people and I've had it happen to myself. So of course, this makes me question the entire philosophy of you have to be in a good space and you have to be at a specific, happiness vibration in order to attract these things. So these are things we actually do to self-sabotage ourselves. Now, psychologically speaking, let's talk about the science behind it a little bit. This is where I love, putting together, science, metaphysics, spirituality, putting it all together. What happens when you try to maintain happiness all the time and you know how to shift your moods? What still happens when you feel, this, let's call it, it's like depression, for an example. Something happens, you get depressed. When you try to shift it and not feel it and move through it, what happens is it actually gets stored in the body. There's a wonderful book out there by Dr. Candace Pert called Molecules of Emotion, and she talks a lot about this. So this is neuroscience, this is real hardcore proven stuff that, when you hold those emotions in your body, you start having disease, you start having discomfort, you create all types of issues for yourself. And so you try to shift out of those spaces too soon, sometimes you'll run into physical issues. So how do you figure out, when there's a difference between feeling happy, being able to shift through it, like, okay, this is healthy for me to shift through because it's merely a mindset, or, gee, I actually really need to feel these emotions because this is something deeper. Now, how do you differentiate the two? So one of the ideas is to determine whether what you're feeling is out of a habit or if it's out of some trauma. They're two entirely different things. So if you just have a habit of doing something that is, let's say, not healthy for you, or a habit of reacting a certain way, releasing it will be very fast. It's like the neuroplasticity in your brain kind of kicks in and goes, okay, we can change this, because it is merely a habit. It takes some time, of course, you know. Some people say 10 days, you know, it takes to shift a habit. Some people say 40 days, depends on what school of thought you know, you're part of. But if it's a habit, it goes away. If it's not a habit and it's deeper, these are the times you actually need to feel those things, and perhaps, you know, even try some of those, you know, more the deeper therapies like EMDR. I love EMDR. I think it's so fascinating. You know, hypnosis will also work. You know, those types of therapies that really help you get in there and release things. So anyway, don't try to be happy all the time. Don't think your manifestations aren't going to happen. Don't think God is going to forget about you if you aren't feeling well. Just know that, you know, the truth of the matter is you are being cared for, and the divine is always watching over us. And as long as we're making an effort to move forward, still there's going to be a ton of magic in our lives. So on to the next video, part 3.